Welcome back. If this is your first time here, this channel is simple. At the end of your day, when the noise has settled and the world has finally gone quiet, we take one of the books that actually matters and we walk through it together. Slowly. No rush. No agenda. Just the ideas delivered at the pace of someone who wants you to actually absorb them. So get comfortable. Let your body get heavy. And let's spend the next little while putting something worth keeping into your mind before you sleep. Tonight's book is one of the most talked about, most debated, most loved, and most criticized books of the last 20 years. The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. If you have heard of it, you probably have a feeling about it already. Either it changed your life, or someone told you it was nonsense, or both. If you haven't heard of it, you are about to encounter an idea that has reached over 30 million people worldwide and sparked a conversation about the nature of reality, thought, and human potential that shows no sign of quieting down. This is not a book that asks for your neutrality. It makes big claims, extraordinary claims. And tonight we are going to walk through those claims honestly. Take what is genuinely useful, sit with what is worth questioning, and let you decide for yourself what to carry into your sleep and what to set gently aside. Because there is something real in this book. Underneath the parts that stretch credibility, underneath the parts that have been rightly criticized, there is a core of genuine psychological and philosophical truth that has been known for centuries and that Rhonda Byrne found a way to make accessible to millions of people who might not have found it otherwise. That is worth something. Let's find out what. So what is the secret? Byrne opens by telling us that this knowledge has existed for thousands of years, that it has been known by the greatest minds in history, that it has been hidden, suppressed, passed quietly from teacher to student across generations, and that it is now, for the first time, being revealed to everyone. The secret, she says, is the law of attraction. The law of attraction is the idea that like attracts like, that your thoughts are a frequency, a vibration that goes out into the universe and attracts experiences, people, and circumstances that match that frequency. That what you think about consistently, you bring about. That your life, in every detail, is a reflection of your dominant thoughts and feelings. Positive thoughts attract positive outcomes. Negative thoughts attract negative outcomes. And you, at every moment, are broadcasting a signal that the universe is responding to. This is the claim. And it is a large one. Let's stay with it. The first thing worth saying is that the law of attraction is not a new idea and not an invention of this book. The philosophical tradition it draws on is ancient and genuinely rich. You can find versions of it in the Hermetic tradition, in the writing of ancient philosophers, in the New Thought movement of the 19th century, in the work of figures like William James and Ralph Waldo Emerson and Napoleon Hill, whose Think and Grow Rich is essentially the same teaching in a different wrapper. You can find it in quantum physics, loosely and controversially interpreted. You can find it in cognitive behavioral therapy's well-established finding that the way you think shapes the way you feel, and the way you feel shapes the actions you take, and the actions you take shape the outcomes you get. The chain is real. Thoughts do influence outcomes. The question is how directly, through what mechanism, and with what limits. Byrne presents the most maximalist version of this idea. She says that thoughts are literally magnetic, that the universe is a vast mirror reflecting your inner world back to you with perfect fidelity, that there are no accidents, no coincidences, no random suffering. Everything that has ever come into your life you have attracted through the nature of your thoughts. This is where the book becomes both its most powerful and its most problematic. We will come to the problems. But first, let's understand why the core idea resonates so deeply with so many people. Because here is what is true and what is genuinely worth taking from this book. Most people are unconscious of their thinking. They do not choose their thoughts. Thoughts happen to them, the same patterns cycling through day after day, mostly negative, mostly fearful, mostly focused on what is wrong or what is lacking or what might go wrong next. And those patterns do shape their lives. Not magically, but practically, powerfully, and in ways that compound over time. A person who thinks of themselves as unlucky notices the evidence of bad luck and misses the evidence of good luck. A person who believes they are unlovable interprets ambiguous social signals as rejection. A person who expects failure approaches opportunities with hesitation that increases the likelihood of the very failure they fear. This is not mysticism. This is psychology. This is what confirmation bias looks like, what self-fulfilling prophecy looks like, what learned helplessness looks like. These are well-documented, extensively researched phenomena. The secret wraps them in the language of the universe and vibration and cosmic law. And for many people, that wrapping is what makes it land. Not because the metaphysics are proven, but because the story is compelling enough to actually change behavior. And changed behavior changes outcomes. That is real. That is worth acknowledging. Now let's walk through how Byrne says the law of attraction actually works in practice. Because she is very specific about this, she describes 3 steps. Ask, believe, receive. Step 1 is ask. You must be clear about what you want. Not vague, not contradictory. Specific, definite, committed. You place your order with the universe the way you would place an order with a catalog. You decide what you want, you ask for it clearly, and then you let it go. Most people, she says, fail at this first step, not because they don't want things, but because they are far more focused on what they don't want. They think about the debt rather than the abundance, the loneliness rather than the love, the illness rather than the health. And the universe, responding to the frequency of their thoughts, gives them more of what they are focused on. The practice she recommends is to shift your focus, deliberately, consistently, and sometimes against the evidence of your current circumstances, toward what you want, rather than what you don't want. Not denying reality, but choosing where to direct your attention within it. Step 2 is believe. This is the hardest step and the one Byrne spends the most time on. You must believe genuinely and not just intellectually that what you have asked for is already yours, that it is on its way, that the universe has received your request and is in the process of delivering it. She uses the image of placing an order online. Once you have clicked confirm, you don't keep logging in to check whether the order exists. You don't call the company repeatedly to make sure. You trust the process and you go about your day. You believe the package is coming. The emotional state she is describing is expectation rather than desperation, hope rather than longing, certainty rather than pleading. And there is something psychologically real here too. Desperation, anxiety, and obsessive focus on the absence of something you want tend to amplify the felt experience of that absence, whereas a genuine sense of ease and expectation creates the internal conditions from which effective action is far more likely to flow. Step 3 is receive. This means getting yourself into the feeling state of already having what you want, acting as if, feeling grateful for it before it arrives, letting yourself experience the emotions you would experience if your desire were already fulfilled. This, Byrne says, is the most powerful step. because it closes the vibrational gap between where you are and where you want to be. And when that gap closes, the thing you want can find its way to you. She then applies the law of attraction to specific areas of life. Let's walk through the most important ones. On money, Byrne is direct and unapologetic. She says that wealth is a state of mind before it is a state of bank account. That people who are poor are, at the level of their dominant thoughts and beliefs, in a poverty consciousness, and that shifting to an abundance consciousness, genuinely believing that money flows to you, genuinely feeling wealthy even before the wealth arrives, is the prerequisite for financial change. She recommends practices like writing yourself a check for the amount of money you want to have, as actor Jim Carrey famously did. Carrying a large denomination bill in your wallet so you feel wealthy as you move through the day. Imagining what you would do with financial abundance in such vivid detail that it begins to feel real. These practices, in the light of behavioral psychology, are not entirely without merit. The mind does not always distinguish clearly between real and vividly imagined experience. Rehearsing abundance can reduce the anxiety and scarcity thinking that often leads to self-sabotaging financial behavior. Feeling good about money rather than afraid of it can make you more likely to take the actions that build it. The caution, of course, is that imagining a check is not a substitute for earning one. Visualization without action is just daydreaming. And Byrne does say that inspired action is part of the process. The universe, she says, will send you opportunities. But you have to be awake to them and willing to act when they come. On health, she makes claims that require careful handling. She suggests that illness is attracted through negative thinking, that people who are sick have brought sickness to themselves through their thoughts, that healing is possible through the power of belief and positive focus. There is a kernel of truth in the mind-body connection she is pointing toward. The research on placebo effects, on how psychological states influence immune function and recovery, on how stress contributes to physical illness, is real and substantial. The mind and body are not separate. What happens in one happens in the other. But the implication that sick people have made themselves sick through their thinking, and that they can heal themselves through better thinking alone, crosses into territory that is not only scientifically unsupported, but potentially harmful. It can lead people away from medical treatment they genuinely need. And it can add the cruelty of self-blame to the already heavy burden of illness. This is one of the places where the book requires the most discernment. Take the truth about the mind-body connection seriously. Do not take the suggestion that illness is your fault. On relationships, Byrne says that you attract the people in your life through your thoughts and feelings. That if you want love, you must first become a match for love. That loneliness attracts more loneliness, and love attracts more love. And that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself, because everything else flows from that. Here she is on solid psychological ground. The internal working models we carry about love and relationships, the beliefs formed in early childhood about whether we are lovable, whether others are trustworthy, whether love is safe, do shape our relational experiences in profound ways. Doing the work of shifting those beliefs, of genuinely opening to love rather than defending against the possibility of its loss, does change what we attract and what we allow. One of the most famous tools in the book is what Byrne calls the vision board. The practice of creating a visual representation of everything you want your life to look like, and placing it somewhere you will see it every day. This practice has been mocked and it has been celebrated. The truth, as usual, is somewhere in the middle. Vision boards work not because staring at pictures of what you want magically summons them from the universe. They work because they keep your attention on what you are moving toward rather than what you are stuck in. They work because attention is selective, and what we focus on we tend to think about, and what we think about we tend to act on. They work because clarity about what you want is genuinely rare and genuinely valuable. And anything that helps you get clear is worth something. They do not work if they are a substitute for action. They do not work if they are a form of magical thinking that relieves you of the responsibility to engage seriously with the practical reality of your life. Used as a focusing tool rather than a manifestation machine, they are harmless and often helpful. Byrne also spends significant time on gratitude. And this is where the book is at its most unambiguous and most well supported. She says that gratitude is one of the highest frequencies available to a human being. That when you are genuinely grateful, you are in a state of alignment with abundance rather than scarcity. That gratitude for what you have opens the door to more of what you want. The research on gratitude is substantial and consistent. People who practice regular, deliberate gratitude report higher levels of well-being, better sleep, stronger relationships, greater resilience, and lower rates of depression and anxiety. This is not controversial. It is one of the most replicated findings in positive psychology. The mechanism is not vibrational, it is attentional. Gratitude trains the brain to notice what is good. And what the brain notices shapes mood, which shapes behavior, which shapes outcomes. The chain is practical and powerful. Byrne also recommends beginning and ending each day with gratitude, which is exactly what you are doing right now, whether you realize it or not. Choosing to fill this quiet time before sleep with something meaningful rather than something empty is itself a form of gratitude for the life you are living. Now let's address the most serious criticism of The Secret directly, because it deserves honest engagement. The book implies, in places quite explicitly, that everything that happens to you is a result of your thoughts. That people in poverty attracted poverty. That people who suffer violence attracted violence. That children who are sick attracted their illness. This is where the philosophy breaks down completely, and where it becomes not just intellectually wrong, but morally dangerous. Suffering is not always chosen. Poverty is structural. Illness is biological. Violence is perpetrated by others. To suggest that victims of these things brought them on themselves through their thinking is to add shame and self-blame to circumstances that are already devastating, and to obscure the social, systemic, and biological realities that actually cause them. Brown does not intend cruelty, and many readers do not take the book to these extremes. But the logic of the teaching, if followed consistently, leads there, and it is worth naming clearly. The truth that is worth keeping is this: you have more influence over your inner world than you probably exercise. Your thoughts matter more than you probably realize. The quality of your attention shapes the quality of your experience in ways that are real and meaningful and worth working with. What is not true is that your thoughts control everything. That the universe is a vending machine that dispenses reality in response to your frequency. That suffering is always deserved or self-created. Hold both of these things at once. Take the genuine power seriously. Release the magical thinking. So what do you actually do with this book? What is the practice that is worth taking into your life? Begin with your thoughts, not by policing them or forcing positivity, but by becoming curious about them. What do you think about most? What does your internal narrator say when you make a mistake, when you are alone, when you imagine the future? Is the default voice one of possibility or one of lack? Of trust or of fear? You cannot change what you cannot see, so start by seeing. Then begin, gently and without pressure, to reach for better feeling thoughts, not toxic positivity, not denying what is hard, but finding, within the reality of your life, the things that are working, the things you are grateful for, the evidence, however small, that good things are possible for you. Let yourself want what you want without shame. Desire is not greed. Wanting a better life, more love, more meaning, more ease, is not evidence of ingratitude for what you have. It is evidence of aliveness. And take action. Let your better feeling thoughts inspire better feeling actions. Let clarity about what you want lead you toward the decisions and efforts that move you in that direction. The universe may or may not be sending signals. Your own inspired action absolutely is. As you close your eyes tonight, here is what is worth carrying from the secret. Your inner world matters. More than most people realize and more than our culture tends to honor. The quality of your thoughts, the direction of your attention, the feeling state you inhabit for the majority of your waking hours. These things shape your life in real, compounding, consequential ways. You are not a passive recipient of whatever the world sends you. You are a participant. You have a say. Not in everything. Not in the weather or other people's choices or the random hard things that life contains, but in how you meet all of it, in what you focus on, in what you believe is possible, in what you are willing to open yourself to. The secret at its best is an invitation to take that participation seriously, to stop sleepwalking through your own life, to wake up to the fact that the lens through which you see everything is something you have more power over than you think. Use that power gently. Use it honestly. Use it not to escape the reality of being human, but to bring the best of your human self to the life you are actually living. And tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let yourself imagine, just lightly and without grasping, what a good tomorrow might feel like. Not forcing it, just allowing it, just making a little room. That is enough. That is more than enough. Good night.